Hello and welcome back to this edition of Daily Actives brought to you by Bootleg Macro. I am Dustin. We are going to be looking at the most actively traded stocks here on Yahoo Finance. Now, if we're going to look, obviously one of the most commonly traded stocks is going to be NVIDIA, but the most recent video that I just did was on SMCI. I'm going to skip NVIDIA for today. I'm going to skip actually, let's look at DJT. I want to get a real quick look on just exactly what happened here. Now, the reason why I want to take a look at this is because I'm really curious about what the market is expecting. Now, if you've looked at any of my previous videos, you're going to completely understand what's happening here. The reason why you're going to understand is because this is a model that I built, which is able for anyone to make inside of Google Finance. The reason I do this is because I want people to be empowered and understand that you do not have to pay attention to brokers. You don't have to pay attention to the news. You can build your own models with free data that exists to everyone. Now, if we are looking, it's kind of remarkable to see that this was down 22.29% just in one day. It's down, it's up still 11% over 5 days, still up nearly 100% over 15 days, and up over 150% over 1 month. Now, if you've been long this thing, I would not be concerned whatsoever, just because you'd expect a normal pullback. The problem here is that this thing, the top of the range is at $53. Let's go ahead and look at the raw data. And yesterday, this thing was at $51.51. So you'd expect that this would have a massive pullback just based on being at the top of the range. What we're seeing today is nothing really that remarkable in terms of when you think about the probability of the outcomes. This thing has been having red background with black lettering or red lettering with a white background ever since the 7th of October. If you've never watched any of my videos, that means it's 2 or 3 standard deviations above its 23-day moving average. The price is now below its 5-day moving average. It's quite a concern from that perspective, but I wouldn't think so much just because of where we've been. Now, if we look, the 23-day moving average is still at around $30. We've traded over 100 million shares as of today. We're still $11.61 above that 23-day moving average. And essentially, this is the chart that shows that we have been moving higher and higher into a very rare air. The highest that the price got away from its 23-day moving average in the previous year has been $23.99. We got to $24.77. So I mean, if you didn't expect a pullback, I honestly don't know what you expected. And I get it. People were like, "Oh, I bought it at 11. This thing's going to the moon. We're buying Lambos." No, you're not. Okay, you know what you're doing? You're buying into a meme stock that has a meme catalyst, which is an election, which is coming up next week. Now, if we look at where we've really seen some serious signals, it'd be when you got that 1 month to 15 day, when they flipped from negative to positive, and that was going to be on the 7th of October. Then you're going to look at the one that you got here in the 3 month, which is going to be on 22 day on the 22nd of October. Also, something very good to look at. Now, if we're going to look at the overall signals, this thing has been go long in the short term, intermediate term, and longer term for a while. It's been bullish in the short term, intermediate term, and longer term for a while as well. If we're looking overall at the range, obviously, or the sentiment, obviously, we have been redlining this thing. If you watched any of my previous videos, this indicator rarely will get above 60%. This thing was at 72.5% and has been sustaining ever since you saw that takeoff in the middle of September. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you pay attention to how this indicator is going to be reacting to a stock like this. And the reason is because A, the price is so low. B, the stock has such a mean like quality to it. C, it has a catalyst, which has nothing to do with the fundamentals of the company, which are going to be taking over in the next week or so here. So when we look at it, I would say this is a stock that if you believe that he's going to win, you're going to want to buy and hold. If you believe that he's not going to win, you're probably going to want to sell it because if he doesn't win, I have no idea what's going to happen to this stock. Now, if we look at the overall trading signals, what's amazing to me is that you see that we have nothing. We have no buys, no sells. We had some massive ones here around that $18 and $21 before we got up to the prices where we've seen recently, but we do not see any of the bear key three or the bull key three necessarily showing us any digits at this point. Now, we can see we've got some big bulls and some small bulls that have been there, but again, with the price and where it's been, I would not trust any of those. Let's go ahead and look at what we've got. So if we look at the chart, again, we've been having this whole conversation this entire time about essentially this is one of the most remarkable moves that I've seen in a long time when we're thinking about like we were at $40, we went up to 75, we went up to $70, we came down to $20, we came back up to $50, we came all the way down to $11, then we came right back up to $50. Remarkable moves. We look at the overall sentiment. Of course, again, this thing really has trouble anytime you get above 60%, but this thing was at 73% on the daily move, and it had been steadily increasing since the very bottom that we saw in August, and since this touch that it saw in September. We see the volume. The volume's been insane. Obviously, the ramp is not going to be there forever. This thing can't end up being the most traded stock in the entire market forever, even though this thing was trading more than we saw NVIDIA trade the other day. Now, if we look at DJT in terms of the volatility and the volume, or the volatility and the correlation, the volatility is insane. We're seeing 14 on the volatility. We're seeing the correlations going positive. We're seeing massive moves inside of this stock. I honestly don't think there's much you can gain from just tracking this. You're going to really have to measure this and track it off of the individual price movements, and you're going to need something that has nothing to do with fundamentals. You're going to have to manage this off of individual like stops that you generate, levels, whatever it is. I'm not sure, but I would not trust anything, even my own personal indicators on trading this stock at the moment. I would be very cautious if I was long. I'd be very cautious if I was short. I'd be terrified. I wouldn't even enter if I wasn't in it already. That's just a word of the wise to somebody who's lost enough money to be able to understand that like this is not the place where you want to be looking for a trend. If you want to look for a trend, let's just really quickly look because you want to see the difference between that and NVIDIA. NVIDIA's trade range is going to look significantly different than what we just saw on DJT. Do you know why? The reason why is because NVIDIA is a large cap growth stock that is traded very easily across the entire market because it's part of the SPY, it's part of many ETFs, it's not DJT. Now, if you look here, this is the type of move that we'd be looking for. Something that's doing a small pullback. The range is generally pretty tight relative to what you'd expect. The bottom is coming up, the top is going higher. That's a great look. Now, if we look at what we've seen, like let's just talk about Google. I'm just going to do this quick because I don't normally review multiple stocks in one video, but I think it's important when you're talking about looking at DJT, and I know how many of you are going to be newer traders, smaller traders, or just people who are just not as aware. Like this is what Google's looked like over the past year. Look at the range. This thing was leading into earnings. The range got tight. The volatility completely collapsed, and it started to break out as the prices now started to break out. And when you see that massive move above, it's still well below its highs at 192. This means to me that I could very much trust the idea that I could buy into the dips inside of Google, but that's because I'm looking at the range. I'm looking at the way that the volatility is moving. I'm looking at the way the volume has been. I'm looking at the way that the overall sentiment has been. You don't see that in DJT. I'm sorry. I'm sure that a lot of you really believe that this is like going to be a gold mine. It's going to be your like thing to the moon. You're going to get a Lambo or maybe just a Toyota Corolla. I'm not quite sure. But when I take a look at what's happening in DJT, these are things that you really want to pay attention to and avoid, at least if you're going to be betting in a large amount. If you're going to bet in a small amount, you just want to have some fun. You want to gamble. You want to do some parlays, essentially in terms of like short-term options like zero DTE. Have fun, but do not put your life savings into something that is definitely going to have a potential to crater and to go to the moon all in the same month. Because when you look at these indicators, it does not look like this is a normal kind of move. This looks like this is catalyst driven, this is meme driven, this is attention driven, and we've all seen what that does. Because I'll tell you what, you want to see the original one, the original meme stock? Let's look at GME real quick, and we'll look at what this range looks like. There's no way it looks anything like what DJT is. You see that? That's the difference between something that can crater and go to the moon very quickly, and then it just ends up essentially being a useless stock that you can't really trust and you don't want to have your money in. But tell me what you think in the comments below. Are you long? Are you short? Do you like it? Do you love it? Is this even a good review? And before you go, if you've made it here, subscribe to the New High newsletter. We send you 25 stocks to your inbox, stocks between $5 and $20 breaking out, stocks breaking out to 1 year highs, stocks breaking out to all time highs. It is a great trading newsletter to get your full week started. I'll talk to you soon.